We got Ty Hudson on the line.
Oh,
Here he is.
hey,
Ty, how you doing?
how's it going, Mark? How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good.
I just heard from your guy, Sam Pittman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this was great that he said, everybody wants to be in this college football playoff. And he said, Arkansas too. We want to be there too. So that's what we're shooting for. And and he kept saying how much he likes his team and that he tells it like it is. And he loves this team.
Yeah. And listen, he's not wrong that he told, I think it was the local media shortly before he took the stage that or it might have been afterwards, I'm not really sure, but he said that, now about half the teams that make the playoffs now, because it's expanded, will have, probably one loss and the other half will have two, or of course you'll have maybe a couple with no losses, but he's not wrong in that. And listen, if you're an Arkansas fan, you don't want him going out there just, completely not mentioning the playoffs and kind of ignoring it. Like, you want your coach to be inspired and wanting to think that maybe that could be a possibility if everything falls the way a certain way for your program. Of course, I'm not in that category of people who think that they'll be there, but I know there are several, even in my Discord, that think, maybe if they catch a few teams on a really bad day and Arkansas just happens to have everything go their way, maybe they could entertain the idea. But I think most people are pretty reasonable in their thought process when it comes to Arkansas in the playoffs. But yeah, he likes what's going on, and he had some really positive things to say about Taylon Green. Again, not really surprising. I have the quote here actually where he said, I thought I had it here. Oh yeah. When he entered the portal, he was their number one guy, and they hit on getting him. And this is what he told. Again, this was, I think, right before he took the podium for the SEC Media Days. But he's clearly a big fan of Taylon Green, and Bobby is too.
Yeah, and if Sam Pittman knows anything, it's offensive line play, and he expects them to be remarkably improved, that they develop, that they've got leaders up front that are making each other work harder and work more and hit the weights more.
Yeah, he mentioned what he said was he was asked about the offensive line a year ago, and he said, what were the problems from a year ago? And he said better recruiting, and then he mentioned Patrick Kutas, who was playing outside, and how he just got cooked out there because that's not his natural position, and now they've moved him into the interior. And he's given plenty of credit to Mateos, the new offensive line coach. We know that during spring camp, you and I have talked about this a number of times. I was at every spring camp or every day of practice for spring camp except maybe one day, and Sam Pittman was with the offensive line. I mean, he was down there every day working with them. He calls himself a GA. He was a grad assistant down there working with the offensive line, the number 2 guy behind Mateos, and he was pulling guys aside, exclusively working with the offensive line. So we'll see. We know they made a lot of moves up front on the offensive line. We'll see how much better they are. And I think he talked with I've watched several interviews. I might be getting them all mixed up, but I think it was either Taylon Green who said this, or maybe it was Sam that said this, that they were talking about Carmona, the left tackle, the transfer they got out of San Jose State, and that Landon Jackson was quoted as saying he's probably one of the better left tackles he lined up against, including his time as a starter at Arkansas. So again, we'll see. We still got a little ways to go, but man, we're getting closer and closer. It's a good feeling, and SEC Media Days is kind of like that. It's that final pivot, right? Or that final moment before we get into fall camp and things really start to kick into overdrive for everybody. But I'm excited. And like you said, Sam is also pretty excited about what's going on with this offense for sure.
And the defense was much improved last year. So if you look at 2022, then look at 2023. Now, he obviously wasn't happy with the final game there against
Oh,
Missouri. That was a disaster,
oh man.
but it was a much improved defense last year. Now, are they going to be able to maintain that and even build on that?
That's a good question. You know, they lost Christopher Poopall, who, again, I know some Hog fans think that they're better off without the guy. He didn't have a brilliant season last year, and there might have been some off the field stuff. I don't know, but I like some of the moves. You know, going out and getting a guy like Anton Jukic, who's already pushing for playing time. He's a transfer that got out of Albany. I'm still curious about what's going on with the interior part of this defensive line. I kind of wonder about the overall depth in the secondary, but they do have some nice pieces there. You know, the linebackers, it's going to be a very interesting position to keep an eye on, to say the least. Xavier Sori is the guy that everyone expects to be like a rock star. You know, you've got an incoming freshman in Bradley Shaw. They've got Steven Dix, who's probably going to contribute. Alex Sanford is back for his second year. Brad Spence, who, by the way, is an absolute beast on EA College Football 2.5. Just FYI, for any of you out there playing these dynasties on EA College Football 2.5, I don't know what it is. Sanford's crushing on my offline dynasty at the moment, but they have there's some fascinating new pieces, again, as you and I have discussed multiple times, about whether or not they can continue this momentum where they've kind of flipped the script last year. Something that was interesting that was brought up, they asked him about the zero coverage plays, which we know that's typically the sign of a pretty aggressive defense, something that the defensive coordinator is kind of known for at his previous job. Last year, they ran a grand total of like 53 zero coverage sets on defense. And Sam kind of alluded to the idea that they're probably going to amp those up a little bit. You know, now he didn't say that specifically, but if you kind of look at his face and just the way he worded that, I think they are going to try and pull the trigger a little bit more. They're going to be a little bit more aggressive on the defensive side of the ball, which is something, hey, you know, I'm all about it. Whatever you can do to kind of maybe pull a mask over some of your weaknesses. We know some defenses have had success before in the past by just being overly aggressive. It can also cost you, right? You can get beat downfield when you have man-to-man coverage on a star receiver, which this league has several. And someone's going to get beat off the snap, and well, there you go. You're cooked, and you went zero coverage, and you paid the price. But yeah, there's I think they're going to be more aggressive. And I'm curious what they're going to work with up front. I think we're going to see more of a multiple look up front, whether it's 3 defensive linemen, 4 guys up front on the line of scrimmage. Maybe we'll see 2 interior tackles. Maybe we'll see just the 1. You know, we'll know a lot probably by the Oklahoma State game would be my guess, just as far as what they want to do on both sides of the ball, really.
You called Sam a GA. He called himself a GA. He's got to be the highest paid GA in the sport, obviously. But yeah, he very much underlined the fact that he lets the OC go, Bobby Petrino, of course, and lets the DC go, and they run the offense and the defense, and he offers his suggestions. But it's very much he even said, it's easy to work for me. I would like to work for me because I let you do your job.
Yeah, and you know, that might make some people a little nervous because that was the approach that he took with Kendall, which worked out, and that was also the approach that he took with Dan Enos. And we saw how that worked out. But I'm sure you're of the same opinion. I know I am, and most Hog fans and most anybody who's watched college football for the last 20 years, Dan Enos and Bobby Petrino are not the same. They're not even on the same level. Petrino is a play caller. Did improve A&M last year despite having to use only A&M language and I guess more or less their playbook. I'm still not entirely sure what that was all about. Even Sam kind of alluded to that as well. He wasn't really sure the situation there, but they still were better. They still improved. But A&M players and that roster and that talent sheet is not Arkansas. We know you're working with a little bit less in terms of just star power on paper. On field, you know, the actual product is different. But yeah, he's going to let them do their thing. He's going to let Bobby, I mean, that's his offense. And I can guarantee you that's what I saw in spring camp. That was Bobby's show. That was absolutely 100%. He was orchestrating, as far as I could tell, he was orchestrating most of it, if not all of it. and the same could be said with the defensive staff as well. That's their side of the ball, and Bobby's got his side as well. So, and special teams also. Although, Scott Fountain's kind of taken some heat, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I've been a part of that. I've kind of been a little curious about why we haven't seen them be consistently, average. They've struggled on special teams over the years, but yeah, Sam lets them go, lets them do their thing, and I guess if I were a coordinator, yeah, I would probably feel the same way. Let me do the job that you hired me to do.
Ty, we appreciate you being here. Got to let you go, but Tusk Talk with Ty. And of course, Ty joins us here at the Voice of College Football on a regular basis, but you can get the daily deal right there with Ty. Tusk Talk with Ty. And I got to say one last thing, Ty, that I was amused by when the playoff was brought up, that Sam Pittman said, "Well, we can't get rid of the bowl season, the Mayo Bowl and the Liberty Bowl and And I'm like, well, of course, that's where you're headed.
Yeah, he's always got, he's usually a star at these things, and yeah, it could have been more awkward. It could have been Lane Kiffin and Paul Feinbaum. I don't know if you've seen that
There
yet.
you go. I heard about that.
Oof. Thanks for having me on, Mark.
Thanks, Ty. Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.